Welcome to the Into Novus Knowledge Agronomy Podcast, your go-to resource for agronomic insights, technology solutions, and ongoing education. At Into, we combine agronomic expertise from soil analysis to best practice application methodologies to provide a holistic view for your yield optimization. Our focus is on practical strategies that improve efficiency and drive better results in the field. Join us for interesting discussions, expert advice, and the latest advancements shaping modern agriculture. Whether you're in the field, on the road, or at your facility, we're here to keep you informed and ahead of the curve. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for joining us again. Today, joined with my counterpart, Rodney Phelps in Northern Illinois and Derek in Northwest Missouri. How are you guys?
Great.
Doing good, Nick.
I would assume the update would be relatively short, but we'd be a little bit different spots in terms of especially fall anhydrous, et cetera. So I don't know, Rodney, if you want to give us a little update where you guys are at.
Yeah, soybean harvest is done. Corn might be 1%, and that would be corn that got blown over about a month ago, and they're still, but otherwise harvest is done. Fall anhydrous is 95% in the books. And we've had some fall burn down. Basically our fall has been fast and it's about in the books. Any tillage and all that is just about put to bed. So we need moisture is what we need right now.
You guys move fast and furious, Rodney.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but yes, we do.
Derek, what about you?
Yeah, we're in a similar scenario. Over the last couple of days, I've seen a combine or two finishing up their last bit of beans. And I'm sure you might be able to find a cornfield or two somewhere across Northwest Missouri. But for the most part, harvest is done. And yeah, similar to Rodney, we still got plenty of anhydrous going on, a lot of tanks being pulled around. But our soil conditions are pretty good for it right now, honestly. Temperature wise, and we do still have, now we're getting dry, but we do still have some moisture in the ground, and so far it's working up nicely. And then fall herbicide been going on strong, which is great because this year with the moisture that we were fortunate enough to get here over the last couple months and a couple different rain events and the warmer temperature spells that we had out in fields over the last few days, definitely winter annuals are coming on strong. So now our temperatures are changing. So hopefully we're not going to have a big window left to get those on, but I think we do still have a little bit of time to take care of some of those winter annuals coming up. But that's kind of where we're at.
Appreciate that, Derek. For us, this has probably been, I keep thinking these falls that we've had the last 2 or 3 that one of these times we're going to get caught and we're going to have a really wet fall. And last year things did kind of close up there in late October, it seemed like, but man, this year things have stayed wide open. To your guys' point, harvest wise, just outside of a few stragglers left out there, there's not much of anything. Lots of tillage happening, a lot of fall anhydrous has gone on. There's still, to Derek's point, though, there'll be plenty of tanks going up and down the road for a while. Some people don't really get started till now. Some people will go a little bit earlier, and some guys will wait a little bit later. So fall herbicide, as far as that, probably been more acres sprayed than there has been in a long time, but they're still getting sprayed and probably will up until this rain that happens. But just a really good fall. Everyone's getting a lot of stuff done, so we should be set up in good shape for the 2026 crop going in. With that said, guys, I think there'll be a good time to kind of jump into one of the bigger topics I think right now that's happening. And part of that is just because seed sales tend to happen this time of year. Everybody's got a deadline that comes up or pops up the end of November, first part of December, it seems like. So I thought I want to reiterate for seed selection, talk to your seed rep. They are the expert. I don't want to claim that we're the experts by any means, but I thought we could give you a few things to think about, when you're having conversations with your seed rep, since that's happening right now. And guys, I would say one of the questions that I've gotten several times over the last couple of weeks, this year more than most years, is just guys talking about going corn on corn, or even, this is my geography, soybeans on soybeans, maybe to get rotations right, or just to change things up a little bit. And I would just mention one of the biggest things that I think on that is just be sure you switch your hybrids or you switch your varieties. So I'm not a big fan of planting the same corn hybrid in the same field 2 years in a row. I'm not a big fan of planting the same soybean variety in the same field 2 years in a row. So just be sure that you switch that up. With that said, I might kind of dump on one of you guys here as far as going into specifics. I think one other thing that I'm hearing a lot of noise about that we haven't in the past, and that would be on the SCN side of things, the soybean cyst nematode. For years, we've utilized PI 88, 788 soybeans, that resistance for a long, long time. And obviously, we've seen resistance to that. We've known that. We've had resistance for 10, 15 years to that. But it does seem like there's more and more peaking varieties that are coming on the scene, at least in Missouri, and a maturity that we have. Rodney's maybe had them for a lot longer than us, but I don't know if you guys want to differentiate a little bit. What's the difference between PI 88, 788, and peaking, and why is it important to us? Why is the SCN an important pest to us?
Yeah, I'll take that. So um, the biggest thing to watch on cyst is it's the silent yield robber that you can't see, and a lot of times you'll don't think you have it and you actually do. The other thing, its symptomology will mask sudden death. And so if you see sudden death, you're thinking, oh, that's what it is, and it could be cyst. To the Peking versus PI 88788, Peking is a great tool. We've tried it for years, and we always had a yield drag when we would bring Peking into the germplasm, and that hurdle has been figured out, and so we're not seeing a yield drag. The caution I'll make on Peking is the way it works and the way it kills is you can have a resistance build up with Peking a lot faster than we ever had with PI 88788. So a big watch out on Peking is do not, even in a rotational, try not to use the same variety with Peking on top of Peking the second time because you could start to have the way it kills, you could have a resistance build up quicker. Some other things on the cyst. There are some cultural practices you can do also. Um, Big thing with cyst too is if there's a lot more no-till up here, but to you guys, you do more tillage. Clean that tillage tool off. If you know you're in a farm that's got a heavy cyst count, um, knock the soil off some of those knives and everything because you can move cysts from one farm to another. They're not mobile themselves. They don't move very far off of row or off of the colonies, but you can physically move them. The other thing to be cognizant of is a cyst trait that's coming to market. You probably won't see any in 26, but probably 27 for sure in 28. And that is be the first biological trait available in a soybean for soybean cyst nematode. And that'll be a big deal. That will be a cultural shift, just like corn rootworm trait was in corn when that's able to hit the market.
Rodney, I I appreciate that. I think you nailed that with the for us, at least in central Missouri, the peaking has been hard to come by in anything much later than a 3.4, 3.5 for years. So, but now they're finally working some in on the later side. Gives us an opportunity. I did a bunch of surveying years ago when I was with Pioneer, like 10 years ago, and the we were pretty much PI 88, 788 resistant back then already, and the numbers were astronomical as far as this. So peaking will offer us a new source of resistance. But the only thing caution I would say is that they're already seeing some resistance in Missouri to peaking, even though we haven't utilized much of it. So it kind of leads right into what Rodney was talking about as far as the new BASF trait. That'll be a perfect lead in potentially for that, having just a different source there altogether. But yeah, cyst is a huge problem. I mean, it robs yield from almost every field. I tell guys to take a look at those fields that have been in CRP for years, or they've been corn on corn for decades, and the beans yield like crazy there. They just don't seem to see the yield drag that other guys see, and a lot of that has to do with cyst numbers, in my opinion.
The other thing on cyst, if you guys say, well, how do I know I have it? I know BASF will pay to have a cyst sample taken. Pull a few cores in, especially gate holes, along tree lines and things like that. Pull those and have them sent in because it blow your mind on the cyst count. And it doesn't take a very high cyst count, like 800 per of soil does damage. And I've seen counts as high as 10,000. So I mean they're crazy. So yeah, just get a handle on what you have so you can start to manage it.
Well, Rodney, I think you hit it, nail on the head whenever you first started talking about there on the silent yield robber. Over the last couple of months when harvest going on, conversations with my growers, and we're thinking, okay, regardless of our yield, what was our yield limiting factors? Soybean cyst nematode still isn't talked about that much, but what is it? You can have up to a 30 bushel yield loss and not see any foliar symptoms from them. That's not something we're considering enough, I don't think. And so getting your soil sampled for it and understanding that they're there, I think is important because it's not going to be as obvious as I think some people would think most of our other pests are.
And another thing, guys, too, we don't want to forget seed treatment. So we're talking about a trait and we're talking about Peking, but you got to make sure you have a good seed treatment on there too that helps with cyst. And not all are created equal in seed treatments. So I'm not going to call out any brand name or whatever. Just make sure that you have a seed treatment on there that's giving you some help with cyst also.
Yeah, that's another good point, Rodney. I always feel like too the seed treatments just tell folks they're hoping to put that on to reduce the numbers. In my opinion, in the greenhouse they can do that, but out in the field, it seems like they keep the reproduction in check for that crop that year. They don't actually decrease the numbers overall; they just hold it in check so it doesn't explode that season.
Yes. Good point.
Derek, maybe switching from that pest to another pathogen in soybeans, Phytophthora. Like, what have you been seeing the last couple of years? What are your thoughts on Phytophthora in soybeans?
Yeah. I think we're seeing a lot more of it. Um, and a lot of it in my area has been coming in later. It's going to be showing up later season, typically in poor drainage areas, areas where we get some heavy rain, low-lying areas where water drains and water sits for a while, and then we get warm temperatures with it type deal. Plants will start to look wilty. You'll get what we call like the shepherd's hook type deal, and it'll just look like all of a sudden they're just dying type thing. But it is a root rotting pathogen. And seed treatments will play a big role, but those are only going to last so long. And so when Nick mentioned at the beginning, thinking of different seed decisions, there are some varieties that are more susceptible than others. So that might be something if you have poor drainage areas, bottom ground, low lying areas, things like that. That would be something to consider in terms of tolerance to Phytophthora. But then, just like with the SCN and Rodney mentioned seed treatments, that's going to come in very important as well. And so, as far as like our Pythium or Phytophthora goes, you're going to want a seed treatment that has either metalaxyl or mefenoxam in it, type deal. Again, I won't mention specific brands and things like that, but those are two active ingredients um, that specifically are effective against either Pythium or Phytophthora. But just another thing to consider as you're making your seed decisions.
And
Yeah,
something I'll also throw out on Phytophthora is a lot of companies, carry the K gene against Phytophthora and that. But what I've seen in my history is field tolerance. There's a lot of soybean varieties that will have uh, great field tolerance, and they may not even carry the gene for Phytophthora. But so make sure you challenge your seed rep and people the companies you're representing of about those soybeans and how's the field tolerance and what genes are they carrying? Are they carrying one, two? because just like we're saying on cyst, PI 88788, the K gene's getting weak. So some of this Phytophthora, and there's different strains now. So a lot of got to remember, Mother Nature is always going to win. So we've got to make sure we're watching varietal choices and field tolerances and a lot of things. The other thing, Derek brought up metal axle. Metal axle's been around forever. I mean, but it is still, it is like atrazine is in chemistry. Metal axle is the cheapest and best product to put on in seed treatment at the most maximum rate you can put for Phytophthora and other soil-borne diseases. So make sure on your seed treatments that there's metal axle at the highest rate you can possibly get in there.
Yeah, good points, guys. I know there's also some newer ones, active ingredients too, that have some activity on Phytophthora as well. Yeah, you bring up a good point about field tolerance. The thing I'd say about Phytophthora, why it's becoming more and more important and more of an issue, is just the race shift, I guess you might say, or the resistance to the resistance genes out there. Like you mentioned, the 1K, the 1A, the 1C, Rodney. Most of those we're seeing race shift or resistance in Phytophthora, where those aren't providing as much control as they once were. And so you really have to watch, to your point, field tolerance. And I think the 3A gene works better. And so, yeah, just to kind of sum up what you guys are talking about, to Derek's point, if you have a poorly drained field that tends to stay wet or you get an infection of Phytophthora, you might want to pay a lot of attention to what kind of variety that you're putting there for sure, and seed treatment.
Well, and up here in Northern Illinois, guys, we're planting earlier and earlier, and a lot of times we're sticking them in wet soil. So we're asking them to germinate into some crap. And so that Phytophthora is going to get in, that can potentially get in that plant very early in its life.
Yep. Good point, Rodney. I guess the other one I just want to throw out there as far as pathogens on soybeans, the one that keeps getting more and more momentum or steam behind it, red crown rot. And that'd be a bigger deal for probably me and Rodney more so than Derek. Derek probably hasn't seen as much of it yet. I'll just say, we really don't need to get into the specifics. By now, you guys have probably heard plenty about red crown rot, probably tired of hearing about red crown rot. I'll just say that, one thing they tend to see is it does maybe infect soybeans that are planted later. So to your point, Rodney, as we plant earlier, not as big of an issue as planted later is, or what tends to be in the literature anyways. And I would say this year for us, we planted more beans in May than we did the year before, and we definitely saw more red crown rot this year than we saw the year before. The only thing I guess I wanted to add on that is just be aware that Syngenta has come out with a new seed treatment that's got activity on red crown rot. I may be butchering the name, but I think you call it Victorado, which has got that Timerium technology in it. But it is, I think, one of the first ones to come out with red crown rot suppression. It does have nematode activity as well. So it's a potential new tool that's out there and available. Rodney, I don't know if you want to add something else.
Yeah, the other thing, and I'm guilty, you can easily mis-ID it as charcoal rot, just the way that it's symptomology within the plant. And so, but it will have, if you get out there early, you'll see the reddish color right at the soil surface. But then when you split the plant, it's full of charcoal rot is what it looks like. So make sure that it's not hard to diagnose if you catch it early and see the redness or at the ground level, but it's a yield robber. It'll take and it meanders its way through the field. There's no rhyme or reason on where it goes and how it goes, but and I no, this is just Rodney talking, in my opinion. We've got crown rotten corn, and we're starting to get that pathogen in the soil profile. And I'm going to guess that somehow these are related, and we're probably dealing with something now that we're going to have forever. So we're just going to have to be cognizant of it.
Appreciate that, Rodney. Yeah, a good cover on a lot of things, soybeans there, which I don't know if I intended to do, but there's just so many things to talk about when it comes to seed selection and soybeans and seed treatment selection. There's just a few top of mind things I guess I just wanted you guys to be aware of. With that said, Derek, I guess maybe I'll switch back over to you. And if you want to talk about, all this fall anhydrous that's going on right now, what does that mean, or what should we think about when it comes to a spring plan per se?
Uh, yeah, as far as again going on right now, have a total plan for your nitrogen. So if this is going to be your first shot of nitrogen, I mean, I guess just a simple reminder: split applications are going to be most effective. And so, if we're going on in the fall and with the conditions we have right now, ensure that you have a good stabilizer in there with it. And then especially if you don't plan on coming back in till top dress, but already have a plan to go in there again this spring. It's going to be a little bit different for everybody, but just a reminder that if we're going to be going in the fall, I'd already have a plan for your in season application and when that's going to happen, type deal. Because in the springtime we get pretty tight. Um, but again, our ground's not frozen, and with the temperatures the way they are, definitely that stabilizer is going to be important at this time.
Yeah, you nailed it, Derek. I guess for guys that tend to do a one pass program, at least in this geography, and they're just putting it all on in the fall. It might work. It depends on the year, but I think you're 100% right. You just got to have a plan, a contingency plan in place in case things don't go right. I had me look at some data on the trial, some rainfall data yesterday that I put out this summer, and that particular location got 9 inches of rain on one rain event in July. And I can tell you that will lose a whole lot of nitrogen in one shot when the soil is warm in season. And so that, in my opinion, is why if you're a one pass pre-plant guy, you need to have a contingency plan, because if something like that happens, you need to find a way to correct that. Rodney, I don't know if you want to add anything. You've got more falling hydrous than the rest of us.
Yeah, and so we're doing better, I will say, at looking at our CECs and not overloading that fall trip, because you got to remember the CEC's the gas tank, and it's only can only hold so much. And so um, you guys are spot on splitting the applications or having a contingency plan. Having a stabilizer in the fall is a must, just because to Nick's point, whether we get a rain event, we get warm up real early in the spring, all of those things give us potential loss factors. I want to switch back to seed real quick, on corn. We did a lot on beans. There's a lot of conversation about non-GMO versus GMO corn moving forward because of cost. And I just want to throw out there, be careful on when you're doing that and talking about it, because if you're willing to go back to non-GMO, that means you can't spray Roundup on that crop. That means there's a lot of chemistries that you can't use on that corn that you're used to. You also have no bug protection. And so just remember, yes, you might be saving up front to the tune of $100 a bag, let's say, just for talking purposes. But if you do the math on what your chemistry program has to do, probably a lot on this call have never had to scout for corn borer and spray corn borer, corn earworm, corn rootworm. I can go down the list. So you've got to address those pests and everything also. So all of a sudden, your $100 a bag savings may turn into $200. So just be cognizant of, especially the slick tongued salesman that says, I can save you $100 a bag, but he fails to tell you everything you don't get in that $100 less.
Yeah, Rodney, to your point on the corn borer, in my career, it seemed like it was maybe every 3 or 4 year issue, but there'd be some guy somewhere that had non-GMO corn that the corn borer obliterated. I remember one guy in particular that planted non-GMO for years, about 10 years, just to save money. He wasn't doing it for the premium. And yeah, he had corn borer one year and it cost him about 120 bushel an acre. And he said, I gave away everything I ever saved and then some. Wasn't worth it.
Yeah. And scouting corn borer for corn borer guys is not fun. And it's not scout it once and done. It's every 3 days, the life cycle of this. And corn borer will decimate a crop. So if you don't take care of it, you might as well not plant it.
Good points. Derek, one last thing I did want to flip back to you. You'd mentioned before we started the call just some reminders on fall herbicide, some of this last minute fall herbicide going on. I don't know if you want to jump in on that.
Yeah, no, like I said in my territory update, winter annuals are they're bad every year, but this year in particular, they seem to be thick as far as the chickweed and the henbit and mare's tail and things have been coming up. We got plenty of moisture in our soils. We had a warm up last week, which helped that growth and things like that. I think our window for applications of fall herbicides is probably we're on the back side of that window, but just some reminders on the fall herbicides. I think this week we're still going to have an opportunity until the rain gets here in a couple days, but and I guess simply a reminder that if the weeds aren't growing, the herbicides aren't going to be active. The weeds have to be actively growing, and once we drop consistently below 55, 50 degrees, weed growth slows down, and therefore our burn down herbicide activity is going to slow down. And so make sure we're using full rates, get aggressive with the adjuvants, the oil loads and things like that. And then as far as residuals go, we're far from the ground freezing, I think. But if you're not burning down weeds and things like that, you can still put on lay-by residual treatments. It's just a matter of we don't want to apply those to frozen ground because they won't get incorporated, things like that. So I just wanted to mention a couple of reminders here as we get on the back side of our fall herbicide application window.
Hey, appreciate that, Derek. Good reminders here at the last minute for those herbicide passes. I was just going to say, guys, we're going to more of a monthly type podcast here through the winter months. So hopefully you guys are able to still join us, and we really appreciate and value your time. We thank you for investing in us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you for joining us. This podcast is brought to you by Into Novus Knowledge. Please reach out to your Into agronomist if we can help in any way. Join us next time for more in-depth agronomic advice.